It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Take your plans out of the group chat and get long weekend ready in new Abercrombie. From day to night, pack new outfits for every part of your itinerary. Grabbing brunch? Throw on the A&F Mila dress. Then head to your dinner reservation in their new bubble hem mini dress. And yes, permission to overpack for pics with the girls. Abercrombie's best-selling Scarlet Squirt deserves a post in your feed. Your plans are worth it. Shop Abercrombie's new long weekend collection online or in store.
Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Virtuo Pup, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of Spin Shuffle Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Every now and then we get a little bit of synergy on the show because we have a film that would qualify for It's Not That Bad. And the soundtrack, which is freaking phenomenal. Today is that day. Now, this is a movie we have not covered yet on It's Not That Bad. We're talking about The Craft. And here to join me to craft his list of songs, Lyle Robichaud's back on the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Jason. You have got me on to something here, because I'd never heard of this. The movie, the soundtrack, most of the bands on the soundtrack, I'd not heard of until I delved into this. And wow, you have sent me down a rabbit hole. How did you know that when I was young, the Hex Girls from Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost was like a huge thing for me? So when I saw this movie poster, I was immediately like, okay, I'm in.
Nice. And that's the thing. This film does actually qualify for It's Not That Bad, sitting at a 57% tomatometer. So Lyle, before we even get into this, am I signing you up for a post-March episode of The Craft?
I'm in. I'm so in to watch The Craft. I will wait until you say so, sir.
Done and done. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through this soundtrack and pick 3 songs each: a spin, a shuffle, and a skip. The spin being our absolute favorite, the shuffle being one that, yeah, it's okay, and the skip is basically like a bad potion that just went wrong. But let's get into this disc. Released April 30th, 1996, and you have to listen to the list of artists that are on this disc. Our Lady Peace, who we have actually covered on There Can Only Be One. Heather Nova, Sponge, Letters to Cleo, Love Spit Love, Matthew Sweet, Juliana Hatfield, Tripping Daisy, Jewel, All Too Much Elastica, and Space Hog. This is literally the most 1996 album that ever 1996'd. So Lyle, going through this disc, you said you had never seen the movie, you'd never listened to this. Was this in your wheelhouse as far as type of music?
Yeah, it really was. I was, from the first song, I was so in. It's crazy kind of how I was like, how have I never heard of any of this? Like, it's very rare that in all of the rabbit holes I jump down and the Spotify journeys I go on that I haven't heard of any of these artists. My spin, crazy that I'd never heard of Sponge.
Sponge is so good.
And then I heard All This and Nothing, and I was like, who the hell are these guys? Like, with a funny name that I don't know of. Went down that rabbit hole, and it's almost like, how did I describe it? A slightly grungier but simplified version of the Tragically Hip, kind of. I don't know how to describe them, but it's that same kind of like very poetic, but still with a hard rock soul to it. It was so good. That's my spin. It was an incredible discovery.
Straight out of Detroit, Michigan, Sponge have been putting out albums since 1994's Rotting Pinata. 1996 also saw them release Wax Ecstatic, and that album is front to back, all killer, no filler, including the hidden track on the disc. I am so looking forward to the day of doing a Sponge There Can Only Be One. I actually got to see the band and talk with the band, going to see them in Louisville, Kentucky, opening for the Nixons, and great bunch of guys. Absolutely great bunch of guys. Talked with the bassist for like a good 20 minutes, and New Pop Sunday is arguably my favorite album of their entire discography. If you like 90s alt rock music, Sponge, you cannot go wrong with at all. But I didn't pick them for my spin pick.
Really?
Yeah. Rule number 1. If you have Letters to Cleo doing a cover song on your soundtrack, it is going to be the best song on the disc. So, when Letters to Cleo takes a song originally done by the Cars, that being Dangerous Type, and makes it their own, you knew I was going to pick it. I love Letters to Cleo. I think they're one of the most underrated bands out there. Kay Hanley, first of all, freaking Kay Hanley. We're talking the singing voice of Josie from Josie and the Pussycats.
True.
So already I'm in. Letters to Cleo are a fantastic band. Their cover of Dangerous Type is better than the original done by the Cars. And I don't say that lightly, but holy crap, Letters to Cleo, every time they put a song on a soundtrack, it is, dare I say it, iconic.
It was really good. And I did love it, obviously, because I already knew the song. It's a Cars song. Everybody loves the Cars. If you don't, you don't have taste. Simple as that. I'm just not a big fan of covers on a soundtrack. I don't know what it is, unless it's really, 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 really well done.
Yeah, but there are some cases where it does work. It absolutely does work. And I think this is one of them too, because it fit the vibe, I think, a little bit of this. And I'm just going through this, and I realize that every single pick that I have off this disc is a cover song.
Really?
Yeah. Because my shuffle is Love Spit Love's cover of How Soon Is Now, originally done by the Smiths and done by multiple other people. It may not be better than the original, but it may be the best cover version of this song that exists. And there's a number of cover versions of How Soon Is Now. But when you're talking about songs that definitely fit the vibe of the movie that they're on the soundtrack of, I think this one definitely hits that.
You know what? That is kind of a perfect way to sum it up, and you're 100% right. This was probably the better cover of any of the cover songs on the album. So I will give you that one.
Yeah. So the fact that I went with a Cars cover, then a Smiths cover, but that's where I say that sometimes a soundtrack is the perfect spot to put a cover song on there, because sometimes you have a song that you're like, I love this song. The lyrics would fit perfectly for the movie, but let's get a bit of a modern spin on it. So we're not one of those, basically a soundtrack that just compiles a bunch of older songs. You don't want to be the K-Tel of soundtracks.
Yeah. You don't want to be like a Guardians of the Galaxy unless that's what you're going for specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even when you think about soundtracks from the 90s, some of the best songs off of soundtracks were cover songs. Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon from the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, as done by Urge Overkill. It's a cover song, and it's fantastic.
I didn't even know that was a cover. Who originally did that?
Originally written by Neil Diamond.
I didn't expect it to be Neil Diamond. Oh my God.
But other versions of that song have been done by Cliff Richard, Jackie Edwards, the Bidou Orchestra, and 16 Volt. But Urge Overkill definitely took it and made it their own. And that's where I think cover songs and soundtracks kind of go hand in, especially in the 90s. Absolutely in the 90s. I mean, even the fact that you had on the Crow soundtrack, 9 Inch Nails doing a Joy Division cover. Like, it's fantastic.
It is. And 9 Inch Nails quickly becoming the kings of soundtrack stuff. I think they're doing the Neutron movie as well.
I mean, just take one look at the Lost Highway soundtrack. that is between Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson as well. Like that was definitely a mood for that one.
Yeah, but they have a really good way of like fitting into the groove that the director is looking for the movie.
Oh, absolutely. And again, you have to have the soundtrack fit the film. Otherwise, it's just, there's zero synergy there.
Yeah, 100%. You have to make it kind of sound like what you want it to look like. You have to make it all gel. If not, the song is just there because you like the song, and that doesn't always play to anything's strength.
Yeah. I mean, we had that discussion when we talked about the City of Angels soundtrack, where you had some very, very blues bar-y kind of songs in a film that also had dripping amounts of ennui in their song selection.
Yeah, it was very glaring, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah, there wasn't really much flow to that one, even though it is a great collection of songs.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply. USAA. Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live full service.
This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian makes the team collaboration software that powers enterprise businesses around the world, including over 80% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian's AI-powered software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, you'll have more time to do the work that matters. In fact, Atlassian customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
But to you, what's your shuffle pick?
My shuffle pick is Under the Water by Jewel, who I had not really been familiar with before this. I knew the name, but I always kind of associated her with my sister's music, I guess is the best way to put it. Taylor Swifty kind of thing. It's sad, it's rom-com music. It's like, but this fits very well. I think the vibe is immaculate with this song. And oh my God, this woman's voice. The chops that I was not aware that she had until I listened to this is quite haunting. Like, it's very, very good. And it made me listen to more Jewel stuff. It made me sit down and listen to 3 or 4 of her bigger songs and realize that I've kind of been sleeping on this a little bit.
Yeah, this came out obviously the year after her 1995 debut, Pieces of You, and the vocal performances that she has on that album. And when you hear about her story, like living in her car, coming down from Alaska, like her story is fantastic to see where she's come, a long way from just small little album that just happens to explode. And then of course Spirit's another good one that came out. And then of course she had like that weird pop dance kind of era when she put out the 0304 album. But Jewel's always really good on this. And you really can't go wrong picking a Jewel song. To be honest, I thought I was going to pick the Heather Nova track because Heather Nova also had some really good albums around that time. But the song on this just didn't really hit. It didn't. I didn't dislike it. I just didn't have a spot for it as far as my picks went. Even though Heather Nova, I think, is one of those very underrated artists that's out there, because if you listen to her 1994 album Oyster, holy crap, that album is hauntingly good.
I don't want to say anything because it's going to give away my skip.
Are you skipping Heather Nova?
I'm skipping Heather Nova.
Okay.
I am. This is one of the only ones that didn't land. I have the lyrics, Jason. I'm going to read you the beginning stanza of this. The time I like is the rush hour because I like the rush. Stairs in what? The pushing of the people. I like it all so much. Such a massive motion. I do not know where it goes. I move with the movement. I have what? Like, that sounds like something that an anime character is blasting as they're like cutting people with a sword or something. Like, I don't know. This did not gel with me. Heather Nova's my skip, unfortunately. I have no doubt that maybe some of the rest of her stuff is really good, but I didn't have the same, I have to listen to more of this as I did with Jewel.
Yeah, I would encourage you to have a listen to the song "Walk This World," which I think is the one of the first songs off of her Oyster album. I think you'll be a little surprised at just how good that song is and how good that album is as well. If you like singer-songwriter type music, like I said, admittedly, this wasn't my favorite song from her, and it's not even her song. This is yet another cover because this one was originally a Peter Gabriel song.
I guess that makes sense because it feels very 80s, going off of the simplicity, I'll say in a very kind way,
Oh yeah,
of the lyrics.
I mean, looking at this, I mean, the Tripping Daisy song "Jump Into the Fire" that was originally written by Harry Nilsson. Juliana Hatfield did a Marianne Faithfull cover. Like there's a lot of covers on this disc, so you are getting a wide variety of new music. But I mentioned that all of my songs, all of my picks off this album are covers. And I generally love Our Lady Peace. But this is not the cover.
Wow. See, I really liked Our Lady piece of that. I liked that one.
Tomorrow Never Knows, covering a song that the Beatles had on their Revolver album. And if you listen to the original, it has a very, I don't want to say mystical vibe, but it definitely has that kind of instrumentation that gives it a more exotic, mystical kind of feel to it. And this feels like they kind of tried to rock through it. And that's not what this song called for, in my opinion. And the fact that this song kicks off the album.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that was not a choice to start everything with.
No, I think if you were going to reorder the track listing on this, you might want to start with The Dangerous Type. You might want to start with How Soon Is Now. There are other better songs to start this with.
I think you start with How Soon Is Now or All This and Nothing, because I think that's the best one.
Yeah. But Tomorrow Never Knows feels like either a mid-album song or maybe the way to end it right before you put it near Bells, Books, and Candles, the Graham Revell score track.
Yeah. I don't know, though. I do like ending on the score tracks. I like the pattern that a lot of the soundtrack albums have of putting those toward the end. So if you want to just skip to that section, you can.
Yeah, no, it's hard to cover the Beatles. It really is. And Revolver is not exactly the most gone to album for people to find songs to cover. And I say this knowing that I've had to cover a couple of Beatles songs in my day playing live. And I both appreciate Paul McCartney and can't stand every bass line that he writes because Mr. Paul McCartney, you are a very complicated bass player to follow.
I think he's a complicated person / artist, period.
Well, I mean, he made Où est le soleil and turned it into a single, and I can't believe that actually saw the light of day. But no, like there are some very interesting musical compositions coming out of the Beatles discography. This song, I don't think fit the rock vibe that Our Lady Peace was putting down on it. And it's a shame because it is I still think they should have just gone with the original Beatles version, but I wonder how much that would have cost them to get.
That's the thing, because I said the exact same thing with the Cars one as well. I was like, why didn't they just get the original version? Because it would have seemed to fit the vibe they were going for. But that was probably very expensive, especially in the Beatles case.
I think if you had taken a song like Tomorrow Never Knows and you had given it to some kind of, for lack of a better term, industrial band, like a Gravity Kills or something, maybe not necessarily My Life with a Thrill Kill Cult, but someone that was, or Stabbing Westward. Stabbing Westward would have done that song phenomenally and given it a more industrial tribal feel rather than this.
I get what you mean there. I see where you're coming from.
All right. So now that we've gone through this disc, please remind our listeners what your spin, shuffle, and skip picks are from the Craft soundtrack.
My spin is All This and Nothing by Sponge, which was just wow, which was an eye-opening experience. My shuffle, also an eye-opening experience in a different direction of like a haunting way, was Under the Water by Jewel. And my skip was, unfortunately for you, Jason, I Have the Touch by Heather Nova, just because of the lyrics alone making me laugh of like, was this written by a sixth grader?
Well, I don't know if Peter Gabriel wrote it when he was in 6th grade, but we'll take that one off of Heather Nova. For me, my spin pick is Dangerous Type by Letters to Cleo. My shuffle pick is How Soon Is Now by Love Spit Love. And my skip is Tomorrow Never Knows, the cover done by Our Lady Peace of the Beatles track off of their Revolver album. Lyle, thank you so much. Now, please let our listeners know what you've been up to and where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
You can find me at Lyle Robichaud. Most things. There's not many Lyles out there. There's also Danny Stover's podcast, both Today in TO and Let's Talk, and the new podcast she's working on that I've been a guest on several times. Also, if you're a fan of wrestling, watch TNA Wrestling. I'm a producer for Anthem Entertainment, who owns the company. It's probably the best after WWE.
All right, dude. Thank you so much for this. And to you, our listeners, well, you guys know the drill. If there's an album that you want us to cover on Spin, Shuffle, Skip, and if there's an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, check out our Coming Soon page because we have a few episodes that we have earmarked to eventually get around to, and we would love to hear your thoughts on those before we record them so we can shout you out in the show. Until next time, he's Lyle, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is Spin Shuffle Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.